Okay, so we are rolling. This is official. Welcome to the platform. Uh, we haven't recorded in probably a week or so. I can't remember, but we've been recording just audio, and now we're gonna start doing video.
What?
And
Congratulations! This is our first,
and
first video.
and we understand that this is not glamorous. Look at the recording audio, the recording setup, but we don't care. This is just to get things started, and eventually we can improve production quality. But we're not too concerned about it right now because we have other things that are a little bit more a priority over just technical stuff. As long as you can see something, hear something, we're fine. But so we're gonna be passing this back and forth as we talk. But anyway, so we are going to do a little recap why we started the platform. We started doing just audio. It's your first time watching, then if you look at the other videos, you'll see that we have other videos that are just audio. And the reason why we started to do the platform is because, number one, we wanted to obtain and maintain wholeness of the mind, body, and spirit, seeking the truth. And help me out here. What else are we trying to achieve through this?
I think those two are the biggest things. I mean, seeking truth.
We're gonna have to pass this.
Okay.
I'll just hold it.
Okay. Yeah. I think those two things are the primary goal, but one aspect of it is for ourselves. Whoa. And then the other aspect is to share, to promote holistic health, wholeness, and to awaken people as we have been waking up.
At least so we think.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, I mean it's about being whole. For me, it was being whole because I had a series of events that happened that made me feel. I reached a place in my mind where I felt really disoriented. I lost the feeling of. I lost that feeling of being whole, and so the last few conversations that we had, it started from. We got into originally talking about. Subconscious programming. Like that was big for us. We got into a moment where we talked about subconscious programming, and then we just started talking about our circumstances, how we got to points that we were in, and they were very challenging. I mean, they still are. It's not like we're done. I mean, we're still doing this thing, but this is gonna the path of the platform is eventually going to lead to some really cool things. But we're still going to do this raw the way it is. We've just been sitting here on the couch. A couple times we've been in the car just chatting. And we're seeking truth. We're seeking information and knowledge. And we don't have all the answers, obviously. But we're pressing for bigger things. Pressing towards the truth, pressing towards purpose, and so yeah.
Well, one thing that is totally off topic, but I think it's pretty cool to point out is, we set out to do this for ourselves. Like we're like, hey, having these conversations is healthy. I mean, it brings about awareness, it brings about reflection. It brings about truth seeking, whether or not somebody listens to this, right? And so we decided to do it, and we had a vision for it, like where it would go and how it would get there, evolve. And something that's really cool, I mean, this is our first video session, and look, I mean, it's not the most glamorous video session, right?
We don't care.
And we don't care. And the cool thing is, like the teaching point, not just for the people watching, but for us too, is that sometimes you just have to go out and do it, right? Like you just have to start somewhere. because there are these two schools of thought. One is that you shouldn't start something until you have it perfect, right? You've got every question answered that you can. You've thought about everything and you've prepared as much as you can. And then there's this other school of thought that's like, man, just what is it? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, or something like that. And just if we've been talking about videotaping since the beginning, okay, and that's been at least 10 weeks minimum. Yep. So I mean, January is about when we started.
We have 11 audio sessions, and we typically were doing about one a week. It seems like. I mean, maybe there was 2 in a week, but that does seem right because, man, it was the middle of winter when we were.
Well, you moved here in January, so it was no longer than January 15th, 20th. But if you think about it, so we've been talking about doing video for a while. My point is this, is if we would have waited for us to have the right gear, the right lighting, we want a permanent location where we can sit down and talk, and we can have a dry erase board or a chalkboard, and we can have digital, transfer digital, messages to some board. If we would have waited until we had all that, when would we have started? Yeah. And so it's really not now. Yeah. So it's really cool to think about how practical it is just to start somewhere and let it evolve. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Tom said, we just had the idea to sit around a table and have a few people talking, but we actually had a member start this earlier on, but coordination, scheduling, whatnot, but we're still going to crank it out. So with that being said, that is really the least of our worries. And I'm telling you, it actually sucks right now more because I don't like being aware of viewership. I like being more just thinking and just, it didn't matter what, because now we're too concerned about, but I think we'll overcome that hopefully soon because it's bothering me right now. I don't like having to feel like I have to be visually oriented towards the camera. Rather, I just want to be in the thinking process. But
it's interesting that you said that because I'm not even sure. Do we address the camera? Do we even look at it? This is my first time, videotaping in this way. Yeah.
And I think the idea is we have a camera now, and maybe somebody's thinking, why record it? But I really think this is just the beginning steps to get over the visual part because I truly believe that in the near future there's going to be more folks coming in, and it'll be more what's the word? More of a not an integration, but collaboration, of a lot of people, and I think it'll be the visual aspect will also have a positive impact. Yeah. And if it's negative, then we'll just do away with it. But anyway, with that being said, is there anything you want to add before we kind of recap everything?
As far as recapping, I don't know. I really wanted to share the story about this weekend and hearing the the sermon.
The what?
Hearing the sermon about neuroplasticity, and I was going to share that story about how it ties into why we're here right now, and how
from the one
church.
All right,
so I don't know, but I don't know if that's
you'll tell that. So I guess we'll just do this real quick. Tom and I were really close in age. Both born in 1983. I'm only 15 days. You're born the 24th. I was born on the 9th of June. We've been friends for a really long time, and we sort of I lived away for a while, and because we're right now in Ohio, but it just so happened that our circumstances kind of were very similar, and we started to seek similar things. Tom and I, a long time ago, started to press into God and Jesus and the Bible, and we started to pick up that word, which was very beneficial for us. That was at the time in Los Angeles when we were living out there.
Years ago. Independent of each other.
Independent of each other.
Even though we lived, in close proximity, like
Yeah.
I had no idea you were going through that phase in your life, and mine was overnight. Mine was radical. So,
Yeah.
but like every transition that we've gone through has been independent of each other, for the most part.
Yeah. And so, Tom and I both accepted through Christ. We received our salvation. Would you say that's accurate to say?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and there'll be a lot of people who are like, I don't agree with that. I don't want to hear that, and that's fine. But I'm not going to deny that. I received truth, salvation, the cleansing of the Spirit. People call it saved through Christ, and I can't deny that. And newness, and so then just about a couple years ago, I started pressing into just kind of other knowledge, and then we started getting into neuroscience, we're not academics or scholars or well educated. We know enough that we started to press into it, and it affected us.
Yeah.
And so most recently, we started talking about subconscious programming. I came across a video a couple years back. It talked about the neuroscience, and I was like, oh wow, that's really cool, and it really affected me. And then I started getting into subconscious programming, vibrational frequency, and all this stuff that seems to be emerging now, at least from my perspective. And then Tom's talking about it, and you hear about it a little more. And I don't know if it's just me pressing into it. That's why it seems so big around me, or if in fact on a bigger scale or more globally, there are people who are pressing into this knowledge. So it seems more surfaced everywhere you look. But again, so that's that. And then you wanted to tell a story. Yeah, tell a story about the sermon, and because that's all. This is going to be evidence of.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was going to tell this story is because, we're recapping.
Yes.
Like that, the main thing is recapping, and I think a lot of people, might wonder how we got here, why do we go through the trouble of videotaping or recording, if it's like for us, and how that all works, and how that all came about. And I just can't believe how few of the people that I hang out with know about epigenetics. I don't know what other umbrella. Do you know of any other umbrella term of what we're studying right now? There's religion, right? And then there's science, and then within the field of science, there's epigenetics, right? And kind of that's the path we're going down right now as far as what we're learning, right? So if you talk about epigenetics or neuroplasticity, is that how you pronounce it? Neuroplasticity?
Plasticity, like
yeah,
plastic.
plasticity. If you talk about those two things, in my friends, my circle group, nobody's talking about them. Nobody knows anything about it. Mm-hmm. It's just they just have no clue what I'm talking about. And that's fine, because up until, 3 months ago, I didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. And it really surprises me that there's this science going on right now in the world, and that we're so blind to it. And so, the story I was going to share is how did we get here and whatnot. And when I went out in November to visit you, I was on the tail end of spiraling out of control with my life, just into the deepest, darkest pits, just self-destruction, right? Just letting myself go, not feeling like I have a purpose or value to my life, whatever. And and I was like, okay, something's got to change. Like, you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. And then I started learning about Jordan Peterson, and then you were on the same path, and we had that phone call, and I was like, hey, I'm coming out to visit for Thanksgiving. And you're like, great. I've been wanting to ask you about something. So when you get out here, we'll talk about it. And then we started talking about we started talking about what we were talking about, you know, and I was like, well, look, this is kind of the path I'm on right now. I'm reading these books. I'm researching these people. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, have you heard of this person, this person? And we started like realizing that our paths were overlapping. And so I went out there, and you're like, hey, listen, I have this vision for this platform where we could talk about these discoveries, you know? And
Well, it's funny because I referred to it as something else, and I couldn't think of a name for it, and then you started referring to it as a platform, and then so the platform stuck, which I think it's a great name for it.
yeah, so you're like, and it wasn't like podcast or whatever. You were just like, hey, I have a vision for this thing, this YouTube channel, and we'll use it, you know, as a way to promote, you know, what we're learning or discovering, whatever. I can't remember exactly how you articulated it, but that was the idea. And like you said, it became a platform. Like, we were talking about it as the platform. And we're like, hey, what do we want to name the platform? Like, right. You know, that I had that, like, the platform written down, and, you know, and then you were like, hey, why don't we just name it the platform? Great. And so you promoted that idea, and it's fascinating because, you know, coming full circle, like, this is what we did as children all the time anyway, from, you know, young adults to right now, like you and I sitting around talking about things that are deeper in life, more valuable, have meaning, is not uncommon for us, you know? And so to sit there and think, okay, why don't we do this like regularly, habitually, with a purpose and intention? And I'm telling you, when you do that based on what we're learning with, you know, neuroscience, like when you do that with intentionality and with habit, like good things come out of that, you know, like us being here today, recording this particular day. Like, I didn't feel like recording today. Yeah. I wasn't like, hey, like, I can't wait to go and record today. I was like, man, I need, you know, I need some depth right now. And so I want to go record. Yeah. And because that's what this.
And I think what you're saying right now, I think that's what this is supposed to be about, because it's the place where the deeper stuff can get talked about. And I don't mean to say that to be like, oh, like we talk about the deep stuff. I don't mean the stuff that you need to talk about so that you can revitalize the soul, so your soul gets on track, so you have like purpose, because we can easily get stuck into the mundaneness of life, the routine, the stuff that we do every day, and then we get numb. Our minds get numb, our souls get numb, and then we're just kind of like, oh, what am I doing here? And if there isn't a platform to press into that, especially with other people, and that's why I think the video stuff, the recording stuff, that's what it's all about, is to bring more people in so that we can have these conversations on a bigger scale. Not that it's absolutely necessary, but if it's like, hey, if this is beneficial, then great for others. Because I know it is for me. I know it is for you. Because like we said, man, there's times where we're sitting right here doing audio recording. We would cut, and then we would talk for another half hour, an hour afterwards, because it feeds the soul. Sorry to cut you off, but where were you?
Well, I'm glad you cut me off, because I will tell you one thing. If we can bring anything to people out there listening, whoever they are, you know, even if it's one person, one thing that I want to bring, and I know you agree, is this idea of transparency, where like one of the biggest hindrances that we have, and you touched on it in your little, you know, talk just now, is that we can be raw, you know, here. We can come and just be real. Like, we don't have to act like we have it together, you know, and I think that's like what I'm finding out is that the biggest and quickest, deepest connections with other humans comes when two people are vulnerable and transparent and real.
Yeah.
And that's why we have a bunch of superficial relationships right now, and a bunch of hate in our hearts, and not authentic love, because our relationships are all built on masks.
Yes.
You know, like you let me, keep putting up my fake self, and I'll let you keep putting up your fake self, and we'll just keep being fake to each other, and we won't call each other on our bullshit, And so like, this is a place where we can come and be like, man, hey, you asked me today, like, how was my week? Or how's my day today? And I was like, yeah, it wasn't that great, and I'm struggling with this. And
amen, man, because we always talk about, when people ask us this question, like, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh, it's going good. Yep. And the worst is when people that you're really close to, when you ask, there's like, oh, I'm doing good. But it's like, man, I know. You can just feel it. It's like, dude, I know it's not good. There's stuff going on. Just say it. Like, cut through the bullshit. Just be real. And, man, just let it all hang out,
Yeah. And so I think that's hopefully where we get to through the stuff that we're learning is how to navigate that, because there is another aspect of it where you don't want to just walk around like, mopey all day, right? Yeah. There's a balance there between like, putting your best foot forward and holding it together, and then being real. There's a balance, and you got to know, who to be real with and when and whatnot.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I would just say this, like, this is my testimony. So we've been learning, if you've listened to the podcast before, we've been learning a lot about subconscious reprogramming. And so it's really this idea about finding out what limiting beliefs you have. Which beliefs do you have that limit your ability to succeed in life in any area? Whether it's you feeling like you're not loved, feeling like you're not worthy to be loved, feeling like you're ugly, you're worthless, you're no good, that you're poor, that you're, not deserving of income. Like whatever those lies are, to understand what they are, where they're coming from, how they got there, and to then reprogram, and to, believing that you are good enough, that you are worthy. And so this has transformed my life personally, just since November, and really just since January, so 4 months, less than 4 months for sure. And my life has already been transformed. And we've been studying this pretty hardcore, even though, only at a basic level. Like, we've been really getting into it. And I was telling Conrad, just a couple days ago that, you can tell who's receptive to it and who isn't. Like, as soon as you talk about neuroplasticity or epigenetics or neuroscience in your friends groups, like, you can tell if it's being received or it's not, And all of mine, for the most part, except for one person, it's not been received well. And it's not been rejected necessarily. It's just been like, okay, that's great, Tom. Like, I'm glad you're on that path. So anyway, like, how about the March Madness, It's like, okay, cool, man. So anyway, I've been like really grateful to God that we've discovered this path. Because think about where we were 5-6 months ago. Like, where were we? What were we doing? Like, me 7 months ago, I was drinking, and partying and looking for, a soulmate, like consuming my time with that, and miserable, and pretending to be happy, and then, like a week, not even a week ago, like a few days ago, just from last Sunday, my friend sends me a video of a sermon from a different church, Greg Ford from one church here in Ohio. And in the sermon, Greg talks about neuroplasticity. And he's like talking about how it's this idea that we can retrain our neural paths into going down paths that are more healthier than the other paths. And he painted this picture of like going, let's just say you're always going to your grandma's house, okay? And he used like Little Red Riding Hood as kind of a fun joke. And he's like, so you always take the freeway to get to your grandma's house, right? But now you know there's a better way, a healthier way. And so you go over the bridge and through the woods to grandmother's house. And he's like, the first couple times you go through this path, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to like it. And he's like, this path is never gone. You've never gone down it before. And so it's going to be overgrown. There's going to be bristles, and thickets and just trees in the way and limbs and all that, spider webs, all that. And he's like, so the first time you go down, you might get halfway and, turn around and be like, wow, this is just too much. And then, the next time you go down, you get a little farther. And eventually, let's just say a year from now, you've gone down this path so much that you don't even remember the other way. Like the old freeway route that was super simple and you could drive it without even looking because it was in your memory. It was ingrained. Now you're going down this healthy path, and let's just say it's working out every day. Let's say it's eating healthy. Let's say it's, doing planning for success, in your job. Like you keep going down this path and you look back a year from now and you're like, how did I get here? Like this path is so easy now. Yeah, it's so clear. Yeah. And, I was just telling you, like, as a recap, like this is how much it means to me. Like I was crying in the sermon. Like I was like bawling in tears of joy. Like, oh my gosh, like this is all happening. Like this is really happening. Like 6 months ago, I was on this crazy path of destruction, and now we're on this new path. And the analogy that Greg's giving is what my life looks like today. Yeah. Like these paths I'm going down, like I'm trying to put in place new habits, and they're hard. Like everybody that I've been studying says the brain hates change. Like it hates to change. Those paths that it's known for so long, your whole life, it doesn't want to change those. And so when I try to get up, and work out every morning, and when I try to eat healthy every day, and when I try to like focus on my goals, my brain doesn't like it. And so I go down this path and it's like thorns and stuff. And then I've been doing it for a few weeks now. And so I'm getting a little farther down, and then the thorns are coming again. And so it's just interesting to think like how everything that we're learning is coming to fruition. Even the law of attraction, the law of polarity, like seek and knock and you will find, like all of that stuff is manifesting right now in this season. Yeah. And it's not like all roses and, sunshine. It's been the opposite actually. Yeah. 'Cause it's hard.
Yeah. And I find it funny that it's quite odd that when you're in a position where you feel like you're just like, man, this really sucks, for lack of a better word, just like everything sucks. Nothing is going like the way I want it to. Then you start to, it's a time where you press into something bigger because you need it. Yeah. And so like me, you go into a moment where you're depressed and you feel disoriented. And so I had to like press into stuff. I had to seek. Yeah. And I found knowledge that helped me out a lot. And then you start to apply it, and then it works. And then the part that's funny and that's odd is that just like any routine or tradition, you get used to it and it gets boring. So you could say, man, I really need this in my life. And then you implement habits, and you finally go down, go down the path that you wanted to go down, and then you stay on that path for a little while, and then it gets kind of mundane. Mm-hmm. And like I have a friend, Pat, he messaged me, or we started talking like, I don't know, like 6 months ago or whatever, and he wanted to quit his job because he didn't like it. and he wanted to do something else, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he was very fearful because he didn't want that job security loss. He wasn't sure how things were going to pan out financially, but he was really excited about it, and so he gravitated towards it. Even though he had that fear, he overcame it, and he did it. Quit his job, started doing what he wanted to do. Now he gets exactly what he wanted, which was more time with his family, just generally more free time, and doing what he likes. And I spoke to him recently, and he was in kind of a position where he's like, man, should I go back to my job or get another job? I feel kind of like weird. And I was like, man, it's so odd because 7 months ago, you really were willing to get out of this and do something, and to do this thing that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like, why do we do that? Why, when things are going to plan, we could even find ourselves kind of in a distress and say, oh, we need that change. It's like we constantly need change. Or why is it that when we build something, we are prone to destroy it? And so what do we do? Just get in that vicious cycle where we build and destroy. Like, life is so repetitive in so many different ways. Everything is cyclical. Everything repeats. I mean, look at just even in the natural world, like the seasons, they repeat, days repeat, minutes repeat, our habits repeat, our routines repeat, the same problems repeat over and over again. It's like, what is the best form of evolution? Like, how do we, I don't just mean like evolution through nature, but I'm talking about the evolution of the spirit. What is the next step? Where do we go? So I can keep doing the same thing I'm doing now, save a little bit of money, retire, and just eat and watch kids run around. It's like, what was the most important part? Was it just to have a family? I think what's most interesting to me, or what I really want to know, is how do you advance? You can say either, I would say separately, the spirit and consciousness. I don't think they're the same thing, but I think that's where I think, see, man, like I was telling you earlier, I felt kind of weird the last few days, and I think it's because we did all this platform stuff, and like a lot's happened in the past few months. Getting baptized, going to the church, doing all this stuff, and then pressing into this stuff and finding out more. And then I personally kind of felt like I plateaued, and I felt like I was starting to do things repetitively again. Like it's a repeat. And I started feeling that fog again in my brain, like, gosh, I feel like I've been here already, and I don't feel that, like, that progressive, that incline that you want.
The rush.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, and that's the thing. I think it's a problem when you start wanting that rush, because that then is an addiction. You're like, you're trying to, like, get the next big fix. Like, I gotta, it's like, and anything, anywhere. It's like, I don't know, high diving. It's like somebody who is a professional high diver, not just Olympics, but I'm talking like the people who do crazy heights, though. It's like, well, 5 feet and 10 feet, 30 feet, 150 feet. There's this guy who's like world records, like 280 feet high dive. It's like, geez, how do you even survive that? But it's like, you want to push we naturally just want to push the next level, like technology. We want to just race and get to the next thing. But see, the thing is, I don't think the spirit works like that. But I mean, not to get way too ahead of myself, but so I think that's like what I'm feeling is like, what is the next spiritual step? Like, what is it? And so, because I don't want to go back, because why relive the same problems? Like, just you have a problem, fix it, and then move on. It's like, you just want to keep experiencing the same problem again. But what makes it even worse is if you start experiencing the same problem again, experiencing the same emotions that you once had with those problems. It's like, oh, here I am again, like, I don't know, I'm broke again, or look at me, I don't have anybody in my life again. Look, no job again. It's like, man, is that going to be the cycle for the rest of your life?
Well, I mean, just to speak to that, because I know this is like a tangent of what you're really wanting to talk about, but like that's
what I wanted to talk about.
No, but that
don't tell me.
Yes, stop it. But that is in the nutshell. No, this is the nutshell. No. That is.
The camera's gonna be a problem.
Oh.
The camera's gonna be a problem.
That is what, neuroplasticity epigenetics is talking about at its core, is that, like, if we don't see, the mind though is so powerful. Like, we might think that we've reprogrammed it, but it just clicks right back, dude. It's like no, Conan, you love being
Get back here.
Yeah. It's like you love being poor, or you love being working so many hours just so you can have this, you tried to tell me that you didn't, and you almost had me. Because
real quick, I'm glad you just said that, because it's important. Now that what you just said, now it made me realize how important it is to not feed off the emotion of wanting the next thing.
Thank you.
Especially when we're talking about spirit, consciousness. It's like, man, I think the best thing to do is just to be patient. And that's one thing that I had. See, man, I'm glad you said that, because that right there is what I needed.
Yep.
Because, man, one thing that I had a huge problem with, and I told you before, is patience and germination. Like the principle of germination. I didn't even know that existed. If I did something, I wanted the result the second that I put it in, that I took the action. Just whatever. Think of any scenario. I wanted the result like that. If I planted a seed, it had to be a tree the next day. Yeah. And if it didn't, I thought that it wasn't working, and so I would quit it and I would go do something else. Yeah. And for me, that was a huge problem for a very long time, for years. And so I could always start something and never finish it. Start something. I think there are some good things that I started that I'm sticking with, but one of the greatest things that I'm glad you and I started was this. Because this right here, because here's the thing, I would start something, and the vision of it being accomplished was all great, and I could see myself there, and so I would put the initial action in, and then when it didn't come to fruition as fast as I wanted to, I didn't care, because truly that vision didn't really mean that much to me, because I can be productive and get things done, but if something wasn't worth the time to get it there, what made it not worth the time was what I was really getting out of it. And so I could see this happening forever, or for as long as we live, or I live, and hopefully you, hopefully you don't bail out, is what is being received at this very moment, not when it's uploaded, not the views, not this, that, not any of that, but like right now. And we've been doing it too without any recordings, just sitting and talking, and like that's pressing in. And I think I'll finish off with this. I think that might be a problem with a lot of people, is not having the outlet to press into this stuff, and then people just get depressed. I mean, I know depression. I know it. It's because you don't press into the bigger stuff. You don't look at the universe. You don't think of God. You don't think of like big stuff. You say, oh, you know what? That's just kind of out there. Let me just live life, and hopefully things will just work itself out. It's like, no, man, like I need something now. Like I need it now. And so, the law of germination works. The law of germination works with a lot of things, most things. But I do know that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And if you ask, you will receive that moment. Now, you can mature and progress in it over time, and that's fine. But what you need at that very moment, it will be given to you if you genuinely want it. Amen.
Amen. No, I mean, I think you're right on in what you're saying, because these practices that I'm doing right now. So I've been basically routine. It's a routine that I've put in place. Waking up, breakfast, working out, goal focus, daily planning, scheduling, and visualizing, and projecting. Like everything I just named, I have a time slot on my calendar where I'm doing that throughout the day. And first of all, that's not like me at all. Like if somebody's peered into my life on a day that I hit those, or 3 days in a row, they'd be like, who's this? Who's this guy? Looks like Tom's cousin.
But the rest of the week.
But yeah, they're like that. They're Thomas. But no, but like today, this weekend wasn't feeling it. Like I just had I took the weekend off intentionally, like I wasn't, I didn't have any desire or intention to wake up at 6 a.m. and do the breakfast and workout and all that. And a lot of the goal stuff is for work anyway. And so I wasn't working. And so I just took the weekend off. And so Monday, for whatever reason, I didn't do half of it. And, I have a buddy that's kind of like holding me accountable, that I went through that group with. And she's like, how was your day? What do you tackle today? Because one of my goals is to do something today that tomorrow might, I'll thank myself for. Do something I don't want to do today that tomorrow I'll be thankful for. And because I did that today, because I did something I didn't want to do intentionally, it wasn't a waste. It wasn't a loss. Like today wasn't a loss. And it was actually a victory, because the old me would have just like scrapped the whole day. Yeah. You know what I mean? And been like, man, I didn't get it right from the beginning, so I'm going to just throw the whole day out. Yeah. And my point in telling that story is that that's like this whole journey, because I could say, well, screw the whole process, because I've if I started this process 3 weeks ago, let's just say it's been 21 days, I've messed up. Like I'll give you this real quick example. It's kind of like silly, but I'm doing it for two reasons. But I write my future wife every night. Okay, so I just write her a note like, hey, future wife, like I know you're out there. What's up? I'm praying for you. This is why I'm praying. This is how I'm praying. Blah blah. This is what happened today. Some highs and lows. Like this is how I thought about you. I wonder what you were doing. Blah blah. And let's say I've been doing that for 21 days.
Now that method is based off of the law of attraction, right? Is that why you're doing that? Like
no. So I'm doing it because, well, okay.
You want to make what you want a true reality right now. So are you writing it like you already have the wife?
No, I'm writing it like I know she's out there doing her own thing, looking for me, and that I'm writing it as in like, dude, I don't have to worry about where you are. I don't have to worry about like if I'm going to meet you tomorrow, because I know you exist. Like I know you're there. So it probably does have to do a lot with the law of attraction, because now that I've been hip to it, but it's more of a mindset, which is the law of attraction.
Yeah, that is the law of attraction. Yeah. So you're pretty much like, your wife's out there. You're not doing it with the feeling of like, oh man, I'm never gonna have a wife and da da da. I mean, you're doing it as if it's your wife's out there, and so you're gonna attract that. Yeah. So when eventually it does happen, it won't be a surprise, because you already knew it was gonna happen.
And also, it's not to speed the process up.
Yeah.
Like it's not to like, finally be ready so that when it happens, it can happen. So, and then the other thing is, I'm doing it just out of discipline. Like I just want to have another discipline, because, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just have this theory that if I can master discipline in of itself, and do things that out of routine and habit that I don't naturally want to do, like writing right before I go to bed, journalizing, that's not something that I want to do. But when I meet my wife, like I want to journalize. I know that's going to be beneficial. Like people that journalize are like, oh, it's so, rewarding and this and that. But man, that is just not my style. Which waking up at 6 a.m. wasn't my style. Cooking breakfast, eating breakfast wasn't my style. So I'm evolving. Like I'm a completely different person. And my point is this: so if I've been doing that for 21 days, and I'm making that number up to point out that of the 21 days, I've probably missed 5 days, right? And so instead of being like, well, screw it, I've missed 5 out of 21 is a good portion of days, It's almost a whole week. And so instead of instead of looking at it like it's a failure, and to scrap the whole project, I'm looking at it as it is. It's a success because it's longer than it's longer than missing 10 out of 21 days. And the fact that I'm keeping it going is a benefit. And, John Assaraf says that like his model and approach is to commit to doing something 100 days and bank on it taking 60 days to come into effect. Some people say a habit takes like 30 days or something like that. 30, 40. And his philosophy is like 60 to be, habitual, and give it 100. If you can't commit to it for 100 days, then don't even start it. And so anyway, I just think that mindset goes and ties into what you were talking about as far as like, like trying to get your spirit evolved overnight and not being like content where it's at right now in the process. Because as I'm writing these notes, the fact that I haven't written one every day, or when I do miss one, that's not a good feeling. Yeah. But I can look at it, I can look back at it and be like, wow, this is still a huge success. And I agree with you as far as like the platform, like just what we're talking about right now is edifying. It is growing us as people. And people haven't even heard it yet. Because this is happening 12 hours before this is even going to be streamed.
But the way I upload, it'll be another week.
Hours. I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt.
By the time I upload this, and not only that, but now we have video to implement. By the way, let me just check to make sure how much time we have on this, because I'm not sure how long this is going to last. So we have... Hey, wait a minute. It's showing how much time we're recording, but I don't know how much time's left on the card. But anyway, we're at 50% battery. I'll have to get a chart, thing for that. But
as far as wrapping up,
yeah. Well, we can give it another 15 minutes or whatever, 10, whatever. 5. What time is it?
It's
9:30. All right. So yeah. So I think the platform is perfect, and it's something that just because of this session, it's making me realize how essential it is.
Yeah.
Because, like I was saying earlier, my go ahead.
I was just gonna say, look, there's so much truth to speak into what you said about your friend Pat. We all do that. Yeah. And it boils down to the grass is not greener on the other side. Yes. We always think it's greener on the other side, and then we get to the other side, and we forget how dark the grass was. I mean, I'm flipping the analogy. Right. Let's just say the grass is greener on the other side. Okay, it is on the other side. Okay, yeah. So you're on your side of the grass, right? And you're like, this grass is kind of ucky. That grass is where I really want to be. And then the problem is we get over there and it is greener, but for whatever reason, man, we forget just how ungreen this is. And so it's starting to look greener. Maybe it's because this is an analogy, right? So maybe in this analogy, maybe our eyes just become so used to seeing our green that it starts to blind it. Right. And then this not so green grass starts looking
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's not psychotic, but it is. That's unhealthy. That's an unhealthy mindset. Yeah. And man, doesn't it make sense that people, when they get through bad situations and they get out, they go back? Yep. Because it's kind of like, wait a minute, I don't know, am I bored, or this territory is familiar and I need something exciting. So, well, what do I know? Well, how about go back to the crappy grass and deal with that again, because I know how to orient myself through that situation now. I know how to handle it, so it won't be that big of a deal, or whatever the mentality is. I mean, you can think of the girlfriend who keeps going to that same boyfriend who treats her like crap. Yep. I mean, I could sit here and think of a lot of reasons why, but man, doesn't that seem kind of like obvious in some respect that You go back to something that you're just familiar with, and or it's just like, I mean, look, two things. One, yeah, it's like, hey, this good stuff, this green grass now is all around me. Maybe I'm a little bored. Let's go back. It's all that I know. The ruts that are
Yep.
our neural pathways just ingrained. It's like, okay, well, this is just what I know, so I have to just go back to what's
Yeah.
familiar and all that. So,
Mhm.
um, but you know what's so good about this is that this is being documented. So we can go back to
Yep.
earlier recordings and say, man, what were we talking about? Where was the spirit? Where
Yeah.
was the mentality?
Yep.
And are we repeating ourselves?
Yep.
Um, so I think growth is great. It's amazing, and I think the kind of spiritual growth is not like the growth of a tree. It doesn't. I don't think. See, I don't think it's something that just gets bigger. I think growth in the spirit is something that it's just becoming aware of more. You're not growing something, you're just like looking in more. The way that just seems right to me to say that. That's what I feel. It's like an uncovering. Bruce Lipton says evolution is awareness.
Mhm.
You're becoming aware of things. And see, I had a thought the other day, and it was something along the lines of everything that we're now uncovering and we're pressing into, and it's making us realize things. It's nothing new. It's been around for since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about, well, wait a minute. The only reason why this is available to us is because we're pressing into it. We're becoming aware of something that already is, was, and always will be.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's key to stay on that path, not to get caught back up into the things that once were big problems in our lives, like the challenges in our lives. If we overcome them, go back to them, or overcome them but constantly focus on them, I think that's not what it's about. I think it's just now. It's now, at least for me, it's like constantly uncovering the stuff that we need to know. And that's the thing is, we don't know what, or I don't know what else is it, like what else beyond. And
Yeah.
again, now we got to go back to, hey, be patient. Remember, it's not like
Yeah.
you can't really go and obtain it at this point. Now it's more of just like like a being aware, you know, opening awareness. Like, I don't even know how to say that, but just like allowing yourself to be more aware.
Well, I just want to say real quick, like what I hear you saying is like learning how to drive a stick shift. You know, there's so many moving parts: the gas, the clutch, steering, shifting, what gear you're in, and then being aware of your surroundings. And if you try to, like, if you start on the freeway learning how to shift, you know, you can't put all those practices in once at one time. But if you just go and you sit in a parking lot and you just let the clutch out while it's in first gear, you don't have to worry about anything around you, and you just let the clutch out a little bit just to get the first gear going. And then once that becomes more natural to you, then to start putting in second, and then to start being like aware.
Yeah.
And so like I think about that in our journey, like if we start trying to like take on so much, like right now, I just yeah, I just want, like, we've already, me personally, I've already grown so much that I'm like, whoa, like I can't take another thing. Like I need to really focus, like what I'm doing with the vision board and reading my goals and casting, you know, projecting them. That right, I just need to sit and meditate on that for 6 months. I need to master that discipline for 6 months, and then be aware. Because you're right, man. Like once we hone this skill, because that's an analogy. Once we hone the skill of awareness of like what's out there, holy crap, dude, the universe is gonna be unlocked to us. You know, you're just gonna be like, I really believe you'll just be able to sense things. You know, like how people are feeling, and like we were talking about, like what not deja vu, but what is it? What were we talking about when you sense something?
Since what?
When you sense something's about to happen.
Oh,
What Intuition, yeah. You know, we were talking about intuition. What is intuition, you know? And so like I really think, you know, like once we master being aware and we uncover like what's really available to us.
Yeah.
What's out there and what were the Egyptians doing? What, you know, like
hey man,
what were the Mayans doing? Like they didn't have satellites and cell phones.
I know. I remember before we ate dinner, we were talking about how like being aware, like I was telling you, like a few months ago, I felt very like yeah, it was like very clear. Like things were very clear as far as just my just being here and then understanding what understanding not understanding but seeing things differently, like the universe. Like you look at the sun and you look at the moon and you're like, man, I'm in a very interesting place. And it was very clear. It seemed very like new to me. I was like, wow, like this is really incredible, this universe that I'm in. And because look, numbness of the mind and the soul is exactly that. It's numbness. You're just kind of like in a thing of mush, and nothing really is that like a big deal to you. You know, it's funny because you can and we've all been here, is where you can say to somebody, hey man, like isn't that sun incredible? Like look, you're standing on Earth in the middle of space. And there's a sun 93 million miles away, and it's a big ball of fire that's keeping Earth warm, and it's giving us life. And but and look beyond that, look at the other planets and all that. And you can look at this and say, yeah, like no big deal. Like okay, whatever. Like I got something else to do. Like da-da-da. And I think that's funny is that we can be at a level, and we've all been there. I mean, that's what I mean. What were you thinking about when you were 2 years old in a sandbox, or 4 years old? Yeah, the universe, and you're like 93 million miles. Okay, so you've been there, done that. You've been there, done that. Yeah. So, and I'm telling you, man, I had those moments where it was just like, whoa. Even the smallest things. I remember going to the bathroom and thinking about where I am in the world. I'm just like, this is pretty incredible. But you can become numb again. You really can. You just go about your day, and then you think, well, it's like, well, is it really that important to really be in tune with that? It's like, if I choose to be, I think I can. If I choose not to be, then I won't. I'll just live. I'll be very just focused on very simple things. And that's fine. I mean, look, we can't be like, at the age of 5, like, check this stuff out, man. You're like, whoa, like, let me just enjoy the simplicities of life. I need to first know that this earth is okay to be in. And I think that's why that exists. I think that's why we have that kind of simple mind at that point, because we can't be thrown with all this incredible information, and I mean, not chaos, but it could appear to be chaos, but like the grandness of the universe. It's like, well, it's way too much for me to handle. I need to just know that I can play in a sandbox or take a walk or go fishing, and life be very simple, because I need to know that this world is okay. Otherwise it'll be overbearing, and we couldn't take it. We'd all just go blow our heads off because it'd be way too much. And so I now know that if you seek it, it'll be revealed to you. But the thing is, seeking it is, I think one of the key things into seeking is you have to be clear. You have to have a clear spirit. You can't have the worldly things be on the forefront of your mind, because then that's all your focus is, and you won't allow for that information to come in. And so, I think that's very good. But I guess that's all I was gonna say. What else you got to say?
No, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Is to prepare your mind to be a place to absorb what you're trying to seek. You know, like if your mind's full of clutter in division, of taking you different ways, and you're like half-ass seeking this path, you're gonna get half-ass that. You know what I mean? So, like, because like I'm not where you are when you say awareness of space and time, right? Like I can I can sense what you're talking about, but like I understand the magnitude of that thought. Like, where are we right now? Like right now, like in this place, like where are we in this universe, and how does it all work, and how small are we, and like what is going on around us, and how did the sun and the moon operate and stuff, and to be like in tune with that, and like present and all really, and just like because you know what I think that does, as I'm saying that, I think what you were feeling, or where that leads to, is the creator, because it points to a creator. And for me at least, saying that, I'm thinking, wow, like somebody made this.
Yeah.
Somebody made all these moving pieces, gravity. Like if you think about it, like there are people under us right now in a different, continent, different country, doing the same, living upside down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like complete, like walking on the ceilings, upside down. How does that work? That's crazy.
It's funny you said that, because a couple of days ago I think I was sitting in a coffee shop or something, and I was thinking about that. I was like, we spend a lot of our lives oriented like this, where up is always up, no matter where you are. And then I thought, wait a minute, if you look at the Earth, and like, let's just say your perspective is so far away you can see Earth, and there's a person standing sideways on Earth, and I was thinking, man, that's right. Like there is no up or down.
Yeah.
There isn't. That doesn't exist. Yeah. We created it. It makes sense, but really, like, and I remember standing sideways and putting Earth on this side, and then the sky on this side. And I was like, that's how right now the Earth could be oriented, but I'm always just standing like this. So everything seems like the Earth is underneath me, the sky's above me. Yep. And but what I wanted to say when you're talking about the sun and stuff is, like, if I could best articulate, or try to articulate, is it's like seeing something and then seeing something, like,
yes.
Like, because look, I've looked at the sun many times, and it was just like the sun. Like, I see it, big deal. I can tell somebody, hey, check out the sun. They see it, big deal. Yep. Or you go outside and you go, oh, it's a beautiful day out. But then I'm sitting there going, like, hold on a second, man. Yep. Like, it really hit me hard. And I'm like, I was telling you, like, the whole bathroom thing. Like, I was going to the bathroom, and I was sitting there going, like, dude, I'm in an incredible place, man. Like, the sun, the moon. And then I got on that website where it shows a 3D animation of like our solar system, and you're looking at it and you're going, this is like really incredible, like truly. But man, remember in that one talk we had, the one platform where you talked about the lens of perspective? Yeah. See, that's some interesting stuff like there, right there, because we need to find out what is that perspective and what changes, like what is that? Yeah. Because man, I like the last few days, I started to feel back like how I used to, where the sun and all that was just like normal again. I didn't think about it. I didn't see it. Like, I knew I saw it differently before, which is great. Yeah. Like, memory is like a key thing here, because once you see things like that in perspective, you can't really go back to regular ways, knowing that you will never go back there again. Like, you can't do it. You do it temporarily, knowing that you're going to go back there again. And started to record the platform again, like after a week or two, however it's been, like it's clicking back, so but yeah, anything else you want to say before we take off?
No, I mean, I think the lens perspective is a great analogy, to keep bringing up the variable, things like they did 2 studies. One study they had people wear glasses, and one of the colors of their glasses was not clear. It was like, let's just say it was red, and one was blue or green. And then they had them wear these glasses for, let's just say, I forget, let's just say a month.
Oh, yeah.
And then they brought them back in and they said, okay, well, which one's green and which one's blue or whatever. And they couldn't tell because because you don't see out of the eye. Like or you don't see out of the brain, it sees through and it tells the brain what it's seeing. And so eventually it just distorted that color. And it was just crazy to think about how our perspectives are made of what reality is. And then another test they did is like they found out that after plastic surgery, that people didn't think that anything was done. Like there were a certain amount of subjects that would have plastic surgery done, and it would completely alter their face. And then they would get out of the surgery and they'd be like, nothing's changed.
Even looking in the mirror?
Yeah, looking in the mirror. Exactly. That's when they would say it. And the nurse and doctors and stuff would be like, what's going on? Like, and so they would document these. And after a while, and then that's when John Assaraf, I think, coined the whole thing about 60 days, it being, or maybe that's when it was coined that like 30 days is when a habit is formed, because it took the patients like 30 or I think it was like 30 days to finally start seeing a difference in themselves. And it just pointed out that the memory, what's ingrained in your memory is what is sees. It's not your eyes, it's what your perspective, like what sees through your eyes and with your mind. And to think that's bizarre to think like that I could be altered in a way and not see it because I've seen this face for 35 years, right?
Yeah, have you? That reminds me of. I remember somebody did an interview with a woman. I forgot what condition she had, but he presented her a picture of a cat, like it was a cat, and she said, "Okay, draw it," and she drew it. And she's like, okay, I'm done. But it was only like half the cat. And she was like, no, I see the full cat here. And then, but to us, it was just half a cat. So the brain,
Yeah. And so anyway, I just brought that up just to kind of piggyback off what you said about perspective and how powerful it is and how powerful our brain is, and to for us at least to keep on this path.
It's crazy because it really makes me think like, okay, perspective and then subconscious programming. What has been programming our subconscious ever since we were kids? What perspective are we looking through now? Like, what don't we know yet?
Exactly.
And we just keep seeing the world like the way we do. But see, that's the thing. It's like, what's behind the uncovering? Like, what's the new perspective? Yeah. And so, see, that's crazy because we're still, even though we're pressing into this, we're still very much operating through a subconscious that has been programmed into us through the world. And I don't think we're there yet. We're scratching the surface, man. We're scratching away at it. What's this? Yeah.
Well, I will say this. So next week, if we can talk about it, I say we jump right back in just like this without a script. And talk about how this has all been working out for us. Yeah. Because like today, and I don't want to go into it because I feel like we've been recording for a long time, and I gotta get Cameron. But today, I had a conversation with myself, and it was like a fight almost, and I was like, "No, fuck you." Like subconscious, like you're not, like you're not this way. You're not a loser. You're not this. You know what I mean? I'm like, no. And so it's funny, man, because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like I got pissed with myself today. I was like, no, you are not lazy. Like get your ass up and go. You know what I mean? I didn't. That wasn't the conversation, but and so it's interesting to like talk. Man, we're scratching the surface, and it takes a while for you to reprogram your subconscious. What are you believing about yourself that's not true?
Yeah. It's like, man, that analogy again, you're in that vehicle, you've been hammering down those ruts and they're deep
Yeah.
They're solid. Like you were in the mud, then the mud hardened, and your tires are in that rut. But you're trying to get off. You have two wheels out. The other two are trying to stay in, and you're counter steering, and you're doing all this, and
it's hard work, man.
yeah. And I was thinking about
I just took a break. I was like,
put it in park. Put it in park. You just
I
sit
put
there.
that car in park, and I'm not doing anything, man.
This car's going nowhere, man.
And we're not getting anywhere.
Three tires
I'm not going
in.
backwards, but I am not going forwards either. And I slept all weekend.
Yeah, see, that car analogy is great. The one you're talking about earlier too, like the shifting and this, and you got the clutch and the brake and all this, everything you got to be aware of. See, the analogy is great because the analogy is good. We know what we have to do. We know what's there. We know we have a shifter. We know we have a gas pedal, brake pedal, and then everything else. But what makes this interesting is that we're only aware of the clutch.
Yeah.
We don't know what the other elements are
Yeah.
or the components. We don't know. Like we have to uncover it. Like what is going to be the stick shift?
Or we do know, but we don't know what they do, right? Like we know there's a traction, so we're like, is this the shifter or is this the gas?
Yeah.
We know there's polarity. We know there's
Attraction, vibration.
the one you germination. We know there's germination. It's like, well, you can't shift unless the clutch is in, right?
Vibrate, germinate.
Yeah.
Polarity.
Frequency. And right now we're getting a lot of noise. The car ain't going anywhere.
Nothing's going on, man. Stuck in the ruts, but
hey, you know what's great though? Jesus did his best teaching in parables.
yes,
He did his best teaching in parables.
Yeah.
He brought a hard concept down in very common language.
and it makes sense. That's
Yeah.
why there is. Because look, man, and I've said this so many times.
Use an analogy to say it.
Yeah, is that the Bible and the teachings of Christ, man, they're top tier stuff. People open it up, and I remember you read Proverbs because it's like, oh, this is cool, but then you start reading other stuff, and then you realize, like, I'm glad I started with that because first off, salvation and all that, and maybe some people don't get it, whatever. I don't need to go through that right now, but it's that stuff. It's like top tier. You read it and you're like, man, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't get it. Like, just believe. I mean, it's like whatever, dude.
Yeah.
But once you kind of get that idea, it's like listening to classical music or something. You're like, that exists. Like, that's amazing. But I want to learn how to play that. Okay, we'll start with Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Yeah.
And your mind's up here. So when you start getting bigger, you're like, okay, now it's becoming more clear. Yep. Dude, face it, man. Christ knew what he was doing. It's like he knew what he was doing. He understood that that's the process. And I mean, it seems complicated, but it's not. But it is, but it's not. But anyway, so we're gonna keep doing this as far as video goes. And it looks like we're still rolling. But the production quality isn't great. Who cares? This isn't gonna be edited. Doesn't need to be. No. That's not the point. We're not trying to be. Look, we're not trying to be flashy. We're not trying to stimulate triggers. We're not trying to we're not trying to keep you on the edge of your seat because this isn't that kind of channel. If you're looking for like fast-paced excitement, that's not this is something totally different. But we do feel like it's the necessary step to do this through video and man, maybe someday there'll come a time where it won't be necessary anymore. We'll be doing something else. But anyway, cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. See ya.